I really like Silverberg. I think I've talked about him quite a few times. He is slowly becoming one of my favourite authors. Very interesting guy, just in and of himself. He's got this kind of this way of writing that you can just tell that he doesn't try very hard, and he can kind of, without really putting too much effort into it, can write some very comprehensive, quite impressive books. And so I think I was looking him up actually, and I think like there was a point where he was writing like 3 or 4,000 words a day on average, like in his career, and like the quality of those is all pretty impressive. That certainly that I've read. I haven't read a book of his, or even like an article of his or anything that doesn't just have this natural showmanship's not quite the word, but just this. He's just far more articulate with a pen, without trying, I think, than most people are. I think someone described him as, he pretty much all of his books are at least a 7 out of 10, and I would totally agree with that. So this one, when he wrote it, actually, he said it was one of his worst books. He really didn't like it at all. But he talks in the afterward about how he kind of came to sort of realise that it was actually quite a good book. It is so it's set on a different world where humans had previously colonised it, and there were 2 races of sentient being, sort of perhaps not as intelligent as humans, but certainly certainly could joust with humans on an intelligence level, which is these elephants here are sort of the key like the main sapient being, the dominant species, but there's also another species that look a bit like a baboon, that are capable of communication and sentient. So humans had previously been on the planet, colonized it, enslaved the native population, and then done capitalism, and had damaged the relationship with the native species, but also just I just kind of had sort of built a lot of machines and kind of taken over, and were quite happy to enslave and torture to some degree the native population. And then the book is set sort of after that, where they realised that actually that was bad, and so a lot of the humans had moved off the planet. They've kind of given the world back to the native population, but there's a small community of humans that still stay on it, and they kind of do things like they run hotels and various other sort of pursuits. The main character, he used to be an administrator, I think relatively senior, in part of the populace that sort of took over the colony, and he is racked with guilt about what he did, and he's kind of trying to atone. He's sort of realised what he did to these sentient beings was not great, and he is trying to participate in a ritual that they do that humans are not really allowed to see. He's trying to participate in that partly as a way of penance and partly as a way of curiosity. He sort of knows that a lot of the humans that try to go to this ceremony don't come back, and he's kind of fine with that. And the book follows is I guess sort of an adventure book. It follows the human around this. It is annoying that I read it like a couple of weeks ago, and so my memory isn't as fresh on it, and literally I haven't thought about it since, really. So this is just a download of my very jumbled thoughts, which is what this channel is really all about. But it is well worth your time. I think it's apparently pays huge homage to Conrad's book Heart of Darkness, I think, which I'm ashamed to say I haven't read. I think it's a 19th century book that again is very much about the damage that colonialism can do, and I think this one covers it in a science fiction setting. It is actually, I think, a very good demonstration in a book of how science fiction can cover greater themes than a lot of other genres, and you know, like, you can use analogy a lot better in a space world with space elephants. It's quite easy to do an analogy on that than it is, you know, to do that sort of on Earth. And Silverberg, being Silverberg, does this very well. He's kind of thoughtful. There's a bit at the end that annoyed me about the message that I can't really say annoyingly, but the message generally forward, like going forward, is about, you know, the so, you know, a native populace have their own rituals and their own there are things that are important to them that might not be important to someone else, and we're not, you know, like, an invading population should obviously never be the thing preventing them from doing that. And that is, you know, I just think, like, that's obvious, right? That's an obvious point to you or to me or to anyone who, you know, has a brain, but like, I think the book encapsulates that well, and you know, gets you to get into the root of those problems. It is an interesting book. It's worth your time. There are, like, several mysteries in the book that get addressed very well. It's a very good example of how books don't need to be long to be powerful, and, you know, the mysteries are set up well. They're executed well. You do understand, and you learn, you know, why this guy feels the way he does, and why he feels like he needs to repent. You learn more about what the human populace did, and sort of the quiet sort of nobility of the especially the elephants, or I can't actually remember what they're called, like Nildora or something. But anyway, the elephant native population, they have this sort of quite touchingly calm and genteel and spiritual connection with the world and with themselves, that is quite poignant, and I think delivers a pretty important message. It's not a long book. It's one of the better Silver books I've read, and that's already quite a high bar. I think I'd probably put it third, behind the Book of Skulls and behind Dying Inside. Maybe I'd put it on a par with Dying Inside. It's very good, and all I want to do is read more Silverberg, because he just seems like such an interesting guy who is able to capture a lot of themes, and the complexities of those themes quite well. Yeah, I again don't know if I'm going to publish this one, but maybe if it's on YouTube, then you'll know what I decided. Cheers, everyone.